Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast. And today it's my absolute pleasure to be joined by Brad DiPaolo. Brad, it's great to have you on board. I've been on your podcast, so we're doing a little kind of podcast swap. And it was great to be on yours. And when we were kind of chatting on yours, I was like, yeah, Brad knows his stuff. Let's have a chat on the Marketing Rules and tease some more information out of you. But for anybody who's kind of being introduced to you for the first time, maybe you could give us a little bit about your background and the business that you run now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great having you on our podcast for sure. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it's Disrupting Recruitment. Go find it, podcast plug. So my name is Brad DiPaolo. I have 20 years experience in sales and marketing and recruitment. And I have always been passionate about marketing, and I've always said that I know enough about it to hurt myself. So when the pandemic hit, I was, in the agency recruitment world, and that took an immediate halt overnight. So it gave me a chance to sit back and talk to recruiters across the globe that I know, and just talk to candidates and say, what's missing? What's the problem? I knew, having been in the agency world, that it was broken and something was missing. But instead of trying to be arrogant enough to think I knew the answers, I went to recruiters and asked them. And overwhelmingly, recruiters just kept saying, I want quality leads in my inbox every day. And candidates kept saying, I just don't want to go into a black hole. And so I thought to myself, well, if we can hand up leads to salespeople every day, why can't we do that to recruiters? And so I studied that and realized that a big part of what does that is marketing automation. So, marketing automation kind of sits on top of all of your content and is the glue that holds it all together and nurtures candidates as they're going through that process. So we really just kind of from there went and took a look at how could we apply that to recruitment, and we came up with some ideas and launched a company called Candidate Hub, which is a recruitment marketing automation platform that just like I said, it sort of sits on top of all of your content and is the glue that holds it all together, and will help you convert your candidates faster.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I've had a look at Canada without kind of turning this into one giant promo for your platform.
Of course not. No, there's lots of other good solutions out there too.
But it's an interesting one because, what we're going to talk about today is obviously around kind of marketing automation. And one of the things is that I think marketeers within recruitment kind of find really frustrating is the ability to basically judge return on investment and understand and track and analyze where stuff is coming from. Right, when you stick it out there into the ether, obviously we've kind of got, there's little bits of analytics on LinkedIn, there's a little bit of analytics over here and here and here and here and here, and obviously we've kind of got Google Analytics, which most of us don't really know how to use particularly well anyway. So something that can help us understand this right from the top, so that kind of automation at the top of the funnel is really important. And I kind of like to kind of understand, you don't have to go into specifics about how you do it, but your thoughts on how we can kind of do that better, that top of the funnel stuff, to kind of draw people in and measure that really as well, without kind of having that kind of unique identifier that we usually kind of crave.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm not sure Google knows how to use Google Analytics, if I'm being honest. The technology that's out there today, a lot of what people have access to is, I have 200 likes on my post, or I've 2,000 people have seen my post, or there's been 50 people on my webpage today. 45% of them bounced. It's all grouped data that we have. And historically, recruiters have never had data. Well, I shouldn't say never had data. They haven't had a lot of data from the original awareness sort of stage to when a candidate actually applies for the job. All kinds of data afterwards, but that process beforehand, there's not much information available, and the more data we can have on that, the better. So if we can understand exactly what content people are clicking on, we get a better understanding and a better picture of the journey that candidates are taking to get to our careers page and hitting that apply button. And I think I've seen stats that say 92% of applicants don't complete, or 92% of candidates don't complete job applications. So there's a ton of missing data that's out there right now. And so using something like an automation tool that'll capture a specific engagement right down to a candidate profile is really important, because you can see that, James watched our video and he clicked on this link on our social post, and he was on this page and he completed this survey and he did this, right? So that's just one side of what a good marketing automation tool will do. It captures that engagement, and then you can score candidates based on sort of how they're engaging with that. So by doing that, you can get a better understanding of where your trigger points are and where your better return on investment is going to be for your call to actions and that sort of thing. So you can get a much better understanding of the journey and do a much better job personalizing it to convert them. It's almost like if you could imagine having a recruiter watching all of your content and hand-holding every candidate that came to your content, and just held their hand the whole way through and walked them along the process. That's what automation does.
Yeah, I love that analogy of kind of leading someone along a path that you have kind of like subtly led for them back to where what you want them to do. I think that's a great analogy. And you kind of touched on this, but one of the things that I think as marketeers we don't really, I think we've almost kind of given up on, is that until we know who this person is, until we've kind of got some kind of unique identifier, right? I.e., we've got their email address, they've completed the form or something like that. We have literally zero access or zero visibility to what possibly has happened above that. But surely there is a need to just kind of understand, even if we don't know who these people are, we can kind of at least trend out some of this stuff. So, for instance, we know if people are landing on a website, we don't know who they are, but there must be kind of information we should be gathering there that at least kind of gives us an idea of like, well, a lot of people are taking this route into the website from this bit of content and landing here and then leaving or something like that, right? There must be some kind of value in all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, going back to Google Analytics, if you really know what you're doing, you can find some of that information out in Google Analytics in terms of path on your website, and using UTM parameters and stuff like that to figure out where they came from. But understanding, and like you said, even if you don't know who they are yet, you've captured their IP address or whatever, you can still see the journey that they're taking, and you can understand and see high level, this piece of content's getting much more engagement than this piece of content. And, if they do, if they visit piece A, piece B, and piece F, they always apply. So we want to make sure we get those three out a little bit more, often, or whatever, or a little higher cadence. So a good piece of automation software will make sure that you want to make sure that you can capture that. I've seen some really good analytical software that captures, this piece was downloaded 14 times, but I don't know who downloaded it. So it's important to know that. It's important to know that, these 14 people downloaded it. And not only did they download this, but then they went to this, and then they went to that.
Yeah.
And because if you know that, then you can do something with it.
Well, I guess there's also the flip side to that is what's not working as well, right?
Absolutely.
What's not hitting. So you've kind of got the stuff that is kind of being really popular, but the stuff that you might have spent a lot of time on, a lot of resources on, and money on potentially, you suddenly realize actually that's not clicking with anybody who's visiting that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We've got this ad series that we spent hours on, and we love it, and nobody's converting from it.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I know one of the things that you're kind of passionate about is that candidate experience, and everything we've kind of talked about kind of so far is kind of building into what makes a good candidate experience. So talk us through that, right? This is something you've obviously done the research in. That's one of the reasons why your business exists. So what's the difference between good candidate experience and a great candidate experience?
Well, think about it from a consumer point of view. We all buy stuff, right? And so when you're purchasing or shopping, companies have gotten really good at giving us a good experience while we're doing that.
Hmm.
Um, so and then you can tell the companies that are not good at it. So, for example, I tell this story all the time. I was shopping for my son at Christmas time, and I he wanted jeans, so I went and bought jeans. Um, and they said, text this code and get 10% off. So what do? Of course, I text the code, right?
Mhm.
And then, like, every Tuesday after that, I'd get texts about discounts on jeans. Well, I'm not buying jeans anymore. I already bought a pair of jeans. I don't buy jeans every week, right? And to me, that's the equivalent of, I'm going to put together this mailing list and I'm going to send them jobs all the time because some point somebody's going to be interested in one of these opportunities. That's not a great experience. Just think about it when you get that text or that email with the discount code all the time. You kind of regret giving them your email address or your text
Mhm.
or your phone number or whatever, right? So a good experience is really giving them the information they need when they need it at the right time. And you do that by understanding sort of what stage they're in. So if they're um, in the really early stages of just coming aware that they might be interested in making a change, maybe it's time for a new opportunity. If you're giving them information about you, you're not giving them a good experience. They need to know what they can do to improve their odds of getting a job, resume skills, how, webinars on how to code in Python or
Mhm.
whatever, right? So it's all about, like, the early stages is all about the candidate and make them experience, good content that educates them. So if you can educate and entertain early on in the process, that's
Yeah.
great. Like, I had a guy on our podcast, Brent Lasnick from Go Auto in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and if you haven't if you haven't come across them, you should go check out their content. They put out a lot of they hire mechanics and stuff a lot of all the time, and they put out just funny videos of to grab people's attention, and people stop scrolling when they see them. I know I do. Um, so it's stuff like that, right? You got to educate, you've got to entertain early on, and communicate through the whole process. If you're dropping the ball on communication, you're providing a terrible experience.
And it's interesting that you use the kind of retail or the e-commerce model. I hear that a lot, right? A lot of a lot of people in the in our space kind of talk about that as a model, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I always kind of question if we should be taking how much we should be taking from the retail kind of model as recruiters, being that it's a slightly different kind of space. But and I'm just wondering if there's you know elements and there's bits and pieces that we can learn from e-commerce and from retail, and there's bits that we should probably just ignore and kind of leave behind us.
Well, I think you could apply that to anything. I'm a big fan of R&D, which I call rob and duplicate. Um, so, uh, but no matter what you do, you're there's elements that you have to take and there's elements you have to ignore, and it really depends on your business, and what's important to you. If you're recruiting in retail, then I would take probably almost all of it.
Yeah,
But if I'm recruiting, data scientists, I might not take as much.
yeah,
But I think it boils down to what I like about consumer, um, marketing is they've figured out the experience part. They really have figured out how to tailor that, and they use a lot of automation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so much, like right down to abandoned cart, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I've always wondered why in retail we don't do more of that, or not in recruitment.
in
Why,
recruiting, we don't do more
yeah,
of that.
why we don't? Why people, when if they leave the application process halfway through, that we don't kind of then follow up with them and just say, look, why have you not?
Well, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, they're seeing that most of their applications are coming in through desktop. And you can make the argument of you need to make your applications more mobile friendly, but who really applies for a job in the middle of the day on their phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do it at night when you get home. That's all there is to it. Like, unless you're sitting in an office all by yourself and nobody's around, you probably are not applying for a new job while you're at work. You do it at night. Um, so if somebody visits a job on your website, like, we should be, if they don't apply for the job that night, maybe the next night, send them an email saying, "Hey, we noticed you checked out this job. Are you interested in applying?" Right? Like,
Yeah,
so yeah, or even better, if they start filling out the application and they don't complete it. Um, but you have to be careful of. I'm not a fan of, you have to create an account to apply for a job, though.
yeah. But you need an identifier though. You'd at least need their email at some point along that route, right? Wouldn't you?
You do, yeah, yeah. The sooner you can get their email address, the better. But that's a trust thing, right? You have to earn that trust. And so I'm a big fan of leaving content ungated as long as possible. Um, if you gate content too early, you're not going to convert as quickly, because people are just not going to. They don't have the trust
Yeah,
to give you. Like, giving up an email address is a big thing.
yeah,
Um, and so if you provide value, they'll give it to you willingly.
mm-hmm.
And so that's why, if you educate and entertain early, you're going to get that email address.
Yeah,
And it might be by, they they've been on here, and they've been on here, and they've been on here. Um, I'm not going to give them a form to give me their email address so that I can add them to my mailing list. I'm going to make sure that I'm blasting their Facebook feed with invitations to a webinar
yeah,
that I think that they'll really enjoy, and then they sign up for the webinar, and guess what? Now you have their email address.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Um, this kind of feeds into my next question, and you mentioned it kind of once already, uh, around lead scoring. Because again, this is one of these things that I think us marketeers know a fair amount about. Well, hopefully we would. But again, it's not really used within recruitment a huge amount to kind of understand when someone is at a certain milestone in their journey, or if someone's ready to be contacted, or whatever that kind of that notification or whatever that thing might be. Talk me a little bit around your kind of, how you use lead scoring and your thoughts around how we can use that better within recruitment.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's two companies that really do it well, and I'm going to be a little bit selfish here and throw my name in one of them. But the other one is Candidate ID. Um, they do lead scoring very well too. We call things a little differently in terms of the stages. They use warm, cold, hire, ready. We use more traditional stages: awareness, interest, consideration, and action. But it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that a journey is not linear. You can't predict that everybody's going to go through this linear journey and it's going to be the same for everybody. And so it's a little bit of a guessing game early, but you start to identify trends when you see that, this is the path that people are typically taking. And so you start to see what's your better quality, higher converting content, and then you just score it higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually you start with the trends. We can start to predict that if they've done this and this, then they're probably ready for this. So, now they're in this stage. So we want to be giving them this kind of content. And now they're in this stage. Oh, you know what? They're ready for action. You should be giving them a call. This is what they do in sales and B2B sales. If you're on a company website enough, they're going to give you a call because They think you're interested in buying their product.
Mm.
The same thing in recruitment. If I'm on a career site enough times, one would think that I'm interested in applying for a job with that company, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just not ready to fill out the application and whatnot, because it's a major life decision.
Yeah. I'm going to throw one other kind of business in there. So HubSpot also do a little bit around lead scoring, but it's a bit more convoluted than I think than maybe you guys and Candidate ID probably handle it.
Well, HubSpot does a great job in lead scoring,
Mm.
but they're sales focused.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with HubSpot actually. They most absolutely can be used for recruitment, and they are used for recruitment. Um, but there are recruitment specific tools that are just a little bit more geared towards the path a candidate takes versus a sales. So you definitely, there's HubSpot, um, Active Campaign and Act On, and some other those
Yeah.
consumer marketing automation platforms that will do the trick as well. But they're geared towards sales. We don't use recruitment marketing automation software for the sales side of our business. We use HubSpot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And last question before I let you go, Brad, is the importance of talent pooling, because this is the term talent pool has been kicking around for how God knows how many years, and I'm still not sure around how many recruiters kind of go down that route, or if they do, they don't necessarily call it talent pooling. They probably refer to it as something, but if they are trying to do it, they're probably not doing it particularly well. So you know. Let me kind of give me some insight on the importance of kind of these pools and how you manage them, how you get people into these pools, and what you then kind of do to keep them warm and engage with them once they're there.
Yeah. So talent pipelining has kind of gotten a bad rap in in the recruitment space, and it's because ATSs for years have been talking about building talent pipelines. But to me, a pipeline is a flowing, dynamic thing, right? Like if you think of an oil pipeline or a gas pipeline, something's constantly flowing through it. Um, but if you look at the ATS, it's more of a reservoir than a pipeline. Like this is a pool of dead water. It's where profiles go to die. Um, and so the importance of talent pipelining is making sure that you have a dynamic relationship with those profiles so that they're staying up to date. They're being enriched, and they're you're giving value and getting value in return. Because otherwise, it's just a reservoir of dead data.
Mm.
But if you have a strong pipeline, then you've got you've basically got candidates waiting in the wings. I talk about recruitment in sports a lot because I'm a big sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's three ways to build a sports team. One is free agency, which is the most expensive way to pick up talent. Like you look at some of the big leagues, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on free agency every year. To me, that's job postings and trying to get those those active candidates on job boards. Then there's trades, which to me is the same thing as hiring agencies to go out and find talent that's on another team.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get good talent. It's going to cost you. Sometimes it's worth it. If that free agent is available and I want him on my team, it's worth it to me to trade this prospect or whatever. But the final one, the one that only the true fans really talk about and really understand, is drafting
Mm-hmm.
and player development. And to me, that's talent pipelining. So in sports, that's where dynasties get built, is in drafting and pipelining talent. They've got kids like right down through minor leagues that they're grooming and getting ready to play, and they're on their team someday. They're hoping someday they'll get a shot at the big team. Well, we need to be doing that in recruitment as well. We need to be building that pipeline of talent in recruitment as well. And So it comes down to identifying those that may be interested in our brand and nurturing them along the way with quality content. And when I say quality content, I don't mean it has to be high polished, hire a production crew to build a video. It just needs to be good, like entertaining or educational or something of value. If it's all about you, it's no value. Like one of the things I'm a big fan of is employee advocacy and just giving people a voice. I saw a post on LinkedIn this morning. Guy was raving about the fact that he got a call to go interview at a company called Refine Labs, which I talk about a lot on my podcast. Anybody in marketing knows Chris Walker. But he was equating it to like sitting there waiting for the phone to ring on draft day, right? Like, and that's, to me, that's a strong employer brand statement versus, meet Kim, blah, 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 right? Like just a picture and some words. And so if you can get good quality content out there that will attract people to your brand, and then you can nurture them through that process, then it becomes much easier. When you do your cold outreach, it's not so cold, it's warm. So you're in that situation where you're calling somebody and it's like draft day for them. They're excited that you're calling. It's like, I say a lot too, nobody buys a car because a salesperson called them up cold and said, "Hey, we have a sale on, come buy a car." It happens. It's very rare. But if it happens, you were already shopping for a car, or you really know that salesperson and you've got an experience with them. And the same thing with recruitment. But if Disney calls, I'm taking that call.
Yeah.
Right? Even if I'm not looking for work, if Disney called me, I'd take the call. So how do you create that Disney experience in getting people to the point where if I call, they're excited to take that call? Yeah. And if you're doing your talent pipelining and your employer branding properly, then that's the situation you're going to be in. When you have an opening, you're calling people that are in your pipeline that are already in the consideration or ready for action stage or warm, hire ready, whatever you want to call it. And they're excited. They're excited that you're calling. And so your time to fill is going to be much, much quicker if you use that metric. But that's the value and that's the importance of talent pipelining.
Brad, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for that. We will obviously include all of your details in the show notes. We'll include a link to your podcast as well, and a link to Candidate Hub. But for now, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.